So here's a mini lecture on speaking to inform. So we're going to cover speaking to inform using organizational structures and speaking extemporaneously. To begin, we're going to be looking at speeches about objects and ideas, about events and people, about processes and procedures, and achieving informative speaking goals. So to begin, to speak to inform, whether you're an employee, a student, or even a parent, public speaking is going to be a part of public life. So you're likely to want to describe or demonstrate something. So speeches about objects and ideas are specifically about animate or inanimate objects or ideas or concepts. You may be speaking about an object. If you do, paint an accurate picture of the object and provide information rather than trying to sell the object. And make sure you use the spatial, chronological, or topical format for this kind of speech. When you're speaking about an idea, it could be an abstract idea or it could be a general type of idea. So you want to explain it in a way in which it's relevant to the audience. And the best use, or the best organizational structure is chronological or topical. When speaking about events and people, make sure that your information is solid and make sure that the information that is interesting. So when speaking about events, you want to focus on the specific event. Is it a holiday? Is it a birthday? Is it D-Day? Is it the first lunar landing? You could be talking about graduations, funerals, an earthquake, unfortunately the corona virus. Any event that you're talking about, you want to make it relevant to your audience and you want to bring the experience alive to your audience. When speaking about people, they could be famous people, it could be infamous people, people who are living, and obviously people who are passed on. And make sure that you are emphasizing the qualities of the people, the impact that they had, and seek to answer the question of your audience, which is, why is this person worthy of your attention, of the audience's attention? When speaking about people, you can use chronological, you can use topical or causal pattern. So causal is when there's a cause or an effect, and that's the pattern that you might use to organize your speech. Speeches about processes and procedures, think about how do you do something? Why does something work? Or how can you make something work? When you're answering these questions, you're using a process and procedural informational method of speaking. So you want to design it to increase the audience's understanding about something and communicate specific skills so your audience can feel like they're getting something out of it that they can apply to themselves. Use chronological or topical order when speaking about processes and procedures. Now, remember that you were given an outline, and I'm going to go over the outline in a minute. But remember to be organized, avoid using jargon, use concrete language, and be accurate when you're speaking. You want to pace, don't race, and don't take the knowledge for granted. And you can repeat. Remember, in public speaking, it's fine for you to repeat the information. It's the way the audience learns it or understands it through repetition. So you want to capture the audience's attention by developing a hunger for the information. And remember to adapt to the audience. We talked about that a lot in other lectures. And finally, be memorable. Remember that you want to leave the audience with something that they've learned and they feel like that they've been able to grasp something from your speech. Remember your verbals and nonverbals, and remember to build in audience participation. That can come by questions or answers, or folding the audience in during your speech. Now I'm going to send a separate link, but you're going to get this video, which is speaking extemporaneously. Once you do, you'll find out that the author is telling you to remember to speak from a place of knowledge, speak conversationally, and speak using an outline. So in this chapter, you've learned about speeches that have to do with objects and ideas. You've learned about speaking about events and people, and speaking about processes and procedures. Remember that the chronological, topical, and causal organizational speech structures are some of the best that you can use for informative speaking. And again, remember when you're speaking extemporaneously after you've watched the video, you should be able to discern that you should speak to the level of your audience, use your outline as your guide, practice, 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 and use personal knowledge that you can apply from yourself to the audience to engage your audience. All right, so next I'm going to talk about your speech outline, and that will be a separate video. Class, this is what your informative speech outline guide will look like. To begin with, in the introduction part of your outline, you have an attention getter. That is what you use to pull your audience in. It can be a fact, it can be a quote, it can be a short video, it could even be a joke, but think about something that you want to use to gain the attention of your audience. Motivation for listening means that you want to make sure that you've thought about how you're going to motivate your audience. And your thesis statement is that one declarative sentence that tells your audience precisely what you're going to talk about. And then you're going to preview your points. Now I have 3 points here. There could be 2 points, there could be 5 points, but you should preview them. So for instance, if your speech is going to be about fruit, and you're going to be talking about apples, oranges, and pears, you would preview by saying, this speech is going to be about apples, point 1, oranges, point 2, and pears, point 3. The second part of your informative outline is your transitions, your body, and you're going to transition into your body by using a transitional word, like to begin. And then you're going to go to point number 1. To continue, that might be a transitional word. You can use many others. Point number 2. Finally would be point number 3. And as you finish with point number 3, you are going to move on to your conclusion. So your conclusion consists of a summary of your main points. So if you were talking about apples, oranges, and pears, you're going to summarize by saying, now that I've spoken about apples, oranges, and pears, you throw it back to your attention getter, which was your quote, your joke, or your video, by referencing it, and then wrap it up by thanking your audience and telling them precisely what it is in a nutshell that you've told them about. Remember to cite your sources, and you cite your sources throughout the speech, or sometimes it's best to cite your source at the beginning of a speech.